I had been planning our trip to Key West for over 6 months, from the weather forecasts to the seat selection on the plane, from the boutique hotel to a list of quiet snorkeling coves no influencer had ruined yet, and I even made a whole 15-slide PowerPoint with annotated maps and side notes about food trucks near the boardwalk just for Emily. It wasn't just a vacation, it was supposed to be a milestone, something we'd look back on and say, that's when we knew we were ready to take the next step. But just 2 days before departure, Emily cancelled. Again. Ryan Kim needs surgery, she said, already putting on her coat, her stethoscope slung over one shoulder like a soldier grabbing his rifle. He's not stable. I can't go. I laughed bitterly. Not out loud. Just inside, the kind of laugh that sits heavy in your chest. Ryan Kim. Her college ex. Her white moonlight, her what if, her bleeding wound that never fully scabbed over. And now he's back, lying in some hospital bed like fate had decided to throw a grenade into the quiet little life I was trying to build with her. And of course, Emily, being the brilliant thoracic surgeon that she is, the hero in Scrubs, dropped everything to save him. Noble? Sure. But I wasn't jealous of her professionalism. I was suffocating under the weight of her emotional history. I couldn't compete with a dying man, right? Except he wasn't dying anymore. It had been 3 months since that surgery. She performed it herself, of course. She didn't sleep the night before, didn't eat properly for days, running around to organize a multidisciplinary consultation like it was a damn national emergency. She even called her retired mentor. I watched her morph into someone I barely recognized, consumed, anxious, meticulous, obsessed. She saved his life. I won't lie, she did it flawlessly. But even after the operation succeeded, she couldn't let go. Post-op checkups. She insisted on doing them herself. Follow-up calls. She made them before I even brushed my teeth. Ryan texts. She replies in seconds, with things like, eat more vegetables, don't stay up late, take your meds on time. And the cherry on top. On her own birthday, I cooked her favorite dishes from scratch. I sliced my hand open deveining shrimp. Stood in the kitchen for hours. She never showed up. Ryan had called with a minor complaint, and she left. The food went cold. She didn't even say sorry. She dabbed ointment on my blister and said, "Babe, you don't have to do this. These foods are high fat and salty anyway, not good for you." And that was it. I wish I could say that was the moment I snapped. But the truth? The snapping had been happening in stages. This latest trip cancellation just happened to be the final one. I raised my voice, which I almost never do. Didn't you already operate on him 3 months ago? Why is he suddenly your full-time job again? Emily pressed her fingers to her temples. Her eyes were bloodshot. James, don't be like this. Complications can be life-threatening. You can travel anytime. But a patient's condition doesn't wait. That stung more than I expected. You say I can travel anytime, but when exactly is that anytime? You've taken how many vacations in your entire career? 3. 4. I asked, shaking. I planned everything around your time. I always adjusted to you. And when we finally got 5 days off before our wedding, you dropped everything for Ryan again. Her face went blank, tired, worn out in a way that made me feel like I was being unreasonable. I'm tired too, James. Please, stop. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Then maybe you should care about all your patients like this, not just your ex-boyfriend. I stormed out into the late winter chill. She didn't follow. I walked aimlessly by the river, the wind gnawing through my coat. The thing is, I never wanted to be the villain in a story where someone's fighting for their life. When Ryan first got diagnosed, I was concerned too. I even cooked meals for Emily so she wouldn't have to live on steamed buns from the hospital cafeteria. I didn't say anything when she started spending nights at the hospital again. I didn't say anything when she stopped answering my messages immediately. But when I found the chat log dozens of messages from her to Ryan, the kind of nurturing tone she never used with May lost it. "Emily," I said, "are you taking care of your patient or your ex?" She didn't reply. She just walked me to Ryan's ward and pointed through the glass. Ryan was curled up in bed, frail as a dying leaf. His skin was gray. His lips pale. I remembered the old him, confident, tall, charismatic. Now he looked like he'd shatter if someone coughed too close. Emily handed me her phone. "You can read the messages if you want. I do this for all my patients." She sounded steady. Her eyes, though, carried something else: sadness. Guilt. A quiet battle I wasn't invited to. I said nothing. But the truth kept gnawing at me. If Ryan was just another patient, why did she still get up at midnight when he called? Why did she keep tweaking his medication, writing and rewriting prescriptions like she didn't trust anyone else to handle it? One day I ran into Ryan myself when I brought Emily lunch. He asked me to pick up his meds from the pharmacy. I agreed. The pharmacist looked up from the list and chuckled, "These meds are all sweetened. This guy doesn't want bitter pills. Dr. Lou must care a lot about his taste buds." My hands felt like they were carrying bricks on the way back. Emily had never customized anything for me like that. I once whined that cold medicine tasted awful and she told me to grow up. "Love shows itself in the little things," she said once. "It's unconscious." I guess that's what scared me the most. Her love was unconscious, just not for me. When I got home that night, I found 3 dishes and a soup waiting on the table. She stood in the doorway, calm as ever. "I made dinner," she said like nothing had happened. I looked at her, and I didn't go through the usual routine of letting things slide. I didn't pretend it didn't hurt. "Let's break up," I said. She froze, just for a moment. "Why?" I shrugged. "You're tired." "I'm tired." "Why drag it out?" Her eyes flickered with something: shock, maybe. But she checked her watch. "I have a 3 p.m. surgery and a 6 p.m. consult. I'll be home by 9. We'll talk then." Then she walked past me like it was just another Tuesday. And that's the thing about Emily. Even when you shatter her world, she'll still get the job done. It's not that she doesn't feel. It's that she never shows it, not to me, at least. I started packing right after she left. Called the movers. Tossed everything that reminded me of us into the trash: the matching mugs, the woven rose from that random street market, her toothbrush. At 8:30 p.m., I saw her missed calls and one text: "James, maybe you need to cool down." Cool down. She thought this was another one of my tantrums. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I blocked her. Entirely. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Heavy, heartbroken, but free. Early March, and the spring chill still lingered in Boston like an unwanted guest who refused to leave. Emily didn't chase after me, not that I expected her to. I wandered along the Charles River, hands shoved deep into my coat pockets, breath fogging in front of my face like a sigh I couldn't release. I wasn't trying to play the victim. I wasn't even mad at Ryan Kim anymore. Honestly, when he was first diagnosed, I was worried too. I knew he was seriously ill and that if anyone could save him, it was Emily. She was one of the most respected thoracic surgeons in the city for a reason. His choice made sense. Why wouldn't you want the best when your life's on the line? But I couldn't ignore the fact that somewhere along the way, my girlfriend stopped being my partner and started being someone else's savior. I supported her at the beginning, cooked for her during those chaotic consultation nights, packed her warm meals so she wouldn't have to eat cafeteria buns, told her not to worry when she forgot our dinner plans again. I thought that was what love looked like: sacrifice, patience, understanding. But love is supposed to be 2 people walking toward each other, not one sprinting after someone else while you wait at the curb. I kept thinking about the first time we really argued about Ryan. It wasn't about the surgery, surprisingly. It was after, when I noticed Emily was still texting him constantly. I had glanced at her phone on the counter, saw the notifications, reminders about meals, warnings to avoid exertion, bedtime check-ins. "Emily," I asked, "are you still his doctor or are you his girlfriend again?" She didn't say a word. Just calmly stared at me, then walked me straight to his room and showed me his frail body through the hospital glass. He looked awful pale, bony, his face sunken and bruised. It shocked me. This wasn't the Ryan Kim I remembered from college parties, confident, athletic, always grinning. This guy looked like life had chewed him up and left him hollow. Emily handed me her phone and told me to read their chats. "I treat all my patients this way," she said, eyes steady. "He's young. He should live." I didn't read the messages. I didn't need to. Because it didn't matter what the text said if my heart was already screaming that I had lost her. One day, I went to the hospital to drop off dinner for her and bumped into Ryan outside the pharmacy. He was on a drip but smiled casually and asked me to pick up his medication because the nurse was busy. I said sure. The pharmacist gave me a strange look when he read the list, then chuckled, "These are all sugar-coated pills. Tastes like candy. Whoever wrote this prescription really cares about his comfort." Dar. Carter's signature, huh? Must have thought a lot about this. He didn't mean anything by it, but I felt like someone had poured cement into my chest. Heavy. Suffocating. Emily never sugar-coated anything for men at her words, not her expectations, not even medicine when I was sick. When I once joked about cold medicine tasting like poison, she rolled her eyes and told me to grow up. But for Ryan, she rewrote prescriptions to keep things sweet. That's the moment I realized maybe she didn't even know she was giving more. Maybe that's just where her heart was. That night, I came home to find dinner waiting and Emily standing in the hallway, pretending like nothing had changed. "I made food," she said, like that erased everything. I told her I wanted to break up. She blinked, just once, then said she had surgery at 3 and a meeting at 6, and she'd be home by 9. Like it was just another shift. I didn't wait. I packed everything before sunset. The movers came at 8:30. I saw 2 missed calls from her and one message that read, "James, maybe you need to cool down." I didn't reply. I just blocked her number. The next day, it rained. Of course it rained. The kind of soft, steady drizzle that makes everything feel like a sad indie film. I moved into a temporary apartment with beige walls and zero soul, surrounded by cardboard boxes and silence. And then, the next day, sunshine. No joke. Like Boston was personally telling me, "Hey, dude, it's time to move on." Emily called again at noon. Different number. I answered without thinking. "James, where are you?" she said, straight to the point. Her voice was calm, professional, but I could tell she'd been up all night. "I tried to call yesterday. There was an emergency. I didn't get home until 1 a.m. I didn't know how to respond. I just said, oh. Because what else was there to say? I used to wait for her until midnight without complaint. But now. I was tired. She kept talking. "James, I don't agree with this breakup. If you're exhausted, tell me. If it's about the trip, we can reschedule." I laughed, not because it was funny. When Ryan finally recovers completely. Let's not pretend this is about scheduling. It's always about Ryan. She was quiet. So I pushed. "Be honest. Do you love me more than you love Ryan?" Her breath caught. "Ryan is my patient. I'm his doctor. That's my calling. And I'm your what? Your side project?" I snapped. "Every time I ask about us, you pivot to Ryan." "Emily, I'm not asking for much. Just a matter." "I'm sorry, James," she said quietly. I hung up. That was the last time I heard from her for weeks. She didn't chase after me. I didn't go back. I guess we both figured it out in our own way. I started hunting for a new place. My work as a freelance illustrator gave me some flexibility, and I figured why not leave the city altogether. But then I got a notification. A resort in Key West was doing a crazy off-season deal. I had already booked with them months ago for the two of us, but now the price included a room upgrade and water activities if I rebooked within the month. I stared at my calendar. I had no client deadlines. No one waiting on me. No one at all. So I rebooked. Alone. That trip. That was the beginning of something. Not a new love story. Not yet. But a moment where I stopped drowning in her shadow. The waves, the reefs, the stillness underwater, it healed something in me. On the last night in Key West, as I was packing up my gear and scrolling through photos of the reef, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. But I knew that voice. James, I transferred Ryan to another doctor. I'm ready to go on our trip now. I was wrong. Can we try again? Her voice cracked at the end like she was crying. But I wasn't crying anymore. I said gently, Emily. I'm already here. She didn't speak. So I kept going. I rebooked when the travel agency offered a discount. I had the time. And the space. And finally. No more waiting. That silence was different than before. That was the sound of her finally realizing she'd lost me for real. I actually met Emily Carter long before Ryan Kim ever showed up in her life, back when we were just two awkward high schoolers trying to survive advanced physics and puberty at the same time. She was a year ahead of me, already something of a legend, top scores, a clean ponytail, that perfect posture that made teachers automatically ask her to lead every group presentation. I still remember the first time I saw her. She was giving a welcome speech during the school's opening ceremony, standing at the podium with the sun lighting up her face just right, like the universe was doing a soft filter for her. That day, I decided I was going to talk to her, win her over, maybe even marry her one day. Of course, I didn't actually say anything to her until months later, and even then, it was more like me awkwardly asking for her number while tripping over my words and trying not to sweat through my shirt. She didn't give it to me. Not then. I was just another sophomore with average grades and too many anime keychains on his backpack. But everything changed during the second semester when my grades took a nosedive and my dad completely lost it. The homeroom teacher called my parents in, and my dad, never one for subtlety, exploded in the teacher's office, yelling that I was garbage just like my mom, that I only knew how to chase girls, that I was a disgrace. The entire class heard him. People stared. Some laughed. I didn't care. I just wanted to disappear. The next day, while I was half asleep at my desk during lunch break, someone called my name. James Walker. I looked up and saw her, Emily, standing at the door of our classroom like a divine intervention. She repeated my name. I got up and walked to her, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. She handed me a challenge. If you can make it into the top 100 in the next monthly exam, I'll go watch a movie with you. I thought she was joking. I was ranked somewhere around 300 at the time. You scared? She asked with a teasing smile, like she already knew I'd say yes. And I did. I studied like my life depended on it. And I made it. Ranked 92nd. She kept her word. After the results came out, we saw a movie together. I don't even remember the title. I just remember watching her watching the screen, her face lit up by the flickering light, the way she leaned slightly forward when the music swelled. That was the moment I fell for her, not just her face or her voice, but her discipline, her calm, the way she never flinched when things got hard. We didn't start dating right away. She made me earn every inch. Top 50 in finals, she said casually. Then we'll talk. I made it to 47th. And then she gave me her number. But even then, we weren't official. She tutored me once a week, gave me packets of practice problems like little love letters in disguise, and I kept convincing myself that maybe, just maybe, she liked me back. On the day of her college entrance exam, I finally asked her, Emily, do you like me? She choked on her water and threw a notebook at me. Focus on your finals, she snapped. That was her way of letting me down easy. But I wasn't even sad. Because deep down, I knew she wasn't rejecting me entirely, she was just putting me on hold. I studied harder. I pushed myself. I got into a top university in the north, full scholarship, everything. I thought we'd meet again there. I really did. But life had other plans. Emily ended up in med school in a different city. We barely talked after that. Then came Ryan Kim. She never mentioned him directly, but I knew. Everyone knew. He was the star of her college days, charming, funny, the guy who made everyone laugh in group projects. I was just the high school boy who tried really hard. The first time I saw them together was when I surprised her at her university. I remember the way her eyes widened slightly, not from joy, but from panic. Ryan was standing next to her, holding a cake, grinning like he had already won. That day, I walked away. I didn't even say anything. Just ghosted the whole city. I told myself I was being mature. But the truth? It broke me. I buried that version of myself. Focused on my degree. Built a quiet, stable life. When Emily showed up in Boston years later for her residency, we ran into each other at an alumni event. She looked tired but still beautiful, like someone carved from winter glass. We talked. We caught up. And somehow, without saying it out loud, we started seeing each other. It was subtle. She never called it dating. I never pushed her. I just wanted to be near her again. She moved in with me after her fellowship. We didn't have a proposal or a fancy moment. We just talked about getting married and agreed it made sense. And now, years later, I was sitting alone in Key West, realizing I had been chasing someone who never really stopped to look back. Maybe that's why it hurt so much when she finally called and said, "I'm ready to go on the trip now." Like I'd just been sitting around waiting for her calendar to open up. I didn't tell her about the snorkeling, the reef, the sun. I didn't tell her how I cried underwater watching schools of fish dart past my goggles, feeling like they were freer than I'd ever be. I just said, "Emily, I'm already here." And she said nothing. Just breathed heavily, like she was realizing she'd lost something she never really tried to keep. When I flew back to Boston, I started looking for apartments. But nothing felt right. Every listing reminded me of the place we used to share, the couch she picked, the desk I worked at, the empty hooks on the wall. One day, I got a call from a realtor. "Mr. Walker, the unit UNMS. Carter purchased last year is almost ready for possession. Would you like to come pick up the keys?" I froze. That condo, our supposed wedding house, was real. Even though only my name was on the deed, she had paid for everything. I offered to split the cost once, gave her a passbook with my savings, but she waved it off, saying, "Now's the best time to find someone to spoil me." That was her version of being soft. I called her again, for the first time since Key West. She picked up immediately. "James," she said, and her voice cracked just slightly, "are you really in that much of a rush to cut ties?" I hesitated. "No, I just thought we should wrap things up." She was quiet. "I've been busy. But if that's what you want, I understand." We didn't talk after that. I handled the paperwork myself. The agent looked awkward the whole time. Afterward, I found myself staring at the empty condo. I had the crazy idea to buy a place of my own with the money I had saved. Something small. Something mine. And then I found a second-hand place with 2 bedrooms, a tiny garden, and sunlight pouring into the living room like it was made just for painting. I signed the contract that same week. That house felt like the first thing in years that belonged to just me. On the day of signing, the owner, a bright, clever woman named Olivia Bennett, noticed my sketchbook and asked if I was a teacher. I laughed and said no, but showed her a few of my illustrations. Her eyes lit up. "I'm building a game studio," she said. "We need a concept artist. Want to collaborate?" And just like that, a new chapter began. Working with Olivia Bennet was nothing like I expected, and maybe that's why it worked so well. We were both starting over in different ways. She was sharp, effortlessly witty, always wearing oversized hoodies and headphones around her neck like a walking startup cliché, but she had this infectious energy that pulled people in. Her team was small but passionate, young developers who believed in their game like it was their purpose, and when she showed me the early concept art, I was hooked. I hadn't felt that kind of excitement in years, the kind that made you forget about time, forget about pain. We brainstormed until midnight, sketched together over ramen takeout, crashed on beanbags after all-nighters. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was creative chemistry, the kind that makes you believe you're building something real, something bigger than yourself. Meanwhile, Emily stayed quiet. After the house transfer, I didn't hear from her again, not a text, not a call, not even a forwarded piece of mail. It was like she had vanished from my life completely, and strangely, I didn't miss her. Or maybe I missed the idea of her, the memory of the girl standing at the front of the classroom, not the woman who learned to compartmentalize me into her schedule like I was a side task on a checklist. One weekend, I decided to plant rose bushes in my tiny garden. I bought seeds from a flower market and spent the afternoon kneeling in the dirt, sweat sticking to my back, hands full of soil. I was halfway through the second row when Olivia called, her voice crackling with panic. "James, your ex-wife's sister is out of her mind. She just tried to throw coffee at me in the middle of the mall." I blinked. "What?" "She screamed at me in public, called me a homewrecker. I don't even know her. Can you please get down here?" The mall wasn't far, so I threw on a jacket and went. I found Olivia standing near an escalator, clearly fuming, and beside her was her cousin Cameron, tall, good-looking, completely unbothered. A few feet away, standing ramrod straight with her arms crossed, was none other than Emily's younger sister, Vivian Carter. And yeah, she looked pissed. "James," finally, Olivia said the moment she saw me. "Tell this psycho I'm not your girlfriend." Vivian snorted. "Oh please, you pick him up and drop him off like it's your full-time job. You think I wouldn't notice?" Olivia looked confused. "How do you even know my schedule?" I glanced at Vivian. Her silence said everything. "This is Cameron," Olivia added, dragging him forward by the arm. "My cousin. Blood relative. He's helping me pick a birthday gift for my dad." Jesus. I tried to mediate, but at this point it was more embarrassing than infuriating. I ended up buying both of them coffee and first aid kits, figuratively, anyway. Vivian finally huffed and stormed off, muttering about protecting her sister's dignity. Olivia, meanwhile, kept mumbling that she was going to sue for emotional distress. I apologized more times than I could count. As we were walking out, I felt someone watching me, and sure enough, Emily was standing across the parking lot. She had parked her car by the curb and was walking toward me in slow, deliberate steps. She looked different. Thinner. Pale. The confident calm she used to wear like armor had been replaced by something heavier, guilt maybe, or fatigue, or both. Olivia cocked her head, then leaned in and whispered, "That's her, huh? The infamous ex." I nodded. Emily stopped just a few feet away, looked at Olivia, then looked at me. "James," she said quietly, "can I talk to you?" Olivia raised an eyebrow but got the message. "I'll wait by the car." Once we were alone, Emily stepped closer. "I'm leaving Boston," she said, not wasting time. "I applied to a medical assistance program out west. There's a shortage of care in the rural regions. I'll be gone for a few years. Maybe longer." I stared at her. "Why?" "Because I need to do something that matters. And maybe because staying here hurts." I didn't know what to say. "Take care of yourself, okay?" she added. "You too." That was it. She walked away, got in her car, and drove off. Just like that. It was almost cinematic. A week later, I received a postcard. It was from her. A photo of Crescent Valley in Utah, Golden sand dunes stretching into the horizon, a tiny crescent-shaped lake tucked between them like a forgotten gem. The back of the card had only one line: "I hope you find the peace I couldn't give you." I stuck it inside one of my art books and didn't look at it again for a long time. Time passed. The game Olivia and I were working on finally reached public beta. We threw a tiny launch party with pizza and soda and a dozen half-drunk indie devs cheering over bug fixes. I stayed up till dawn cleaning up code assets and polishing splash screens. That morning, while nursing my third cup of coffee, Olivia dropped into the chair next to mine and said, "By the way, when are you going to give me a tour of that rose garden of yours?" I chuckled. "It's barely alive. I think one of the bushes is already dead." "Still," she said, leaning back, "I want to see it." "It's yours. That makes it kind of cool." I didn't answer right away. I was looking at the Crescent Valley postcard again, thinking about Emily, about how love sometimes arrives like a thunderstorm and leaves like a slow, dry drought. You don't even notice the plants dying until one day you look around and realize it's all brown. Olivia noticed my silence but didn't press. She never does. She just sat with me, both of us blinking through the fog of exhaustion and ambition and unsaid things. And maybe that's the difference. With Emily, everything had to be scheduled, justified, controlled. But with Olivia, it just was. I never had to fight for her time. Never had to compete with someone else's ghost. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Olivia and I are heading into something more or just orbiting the same safe little planet of mutual respect and creative energy. But I do know this: I am done begging to be someone's second priority. I'm done trying to prove I deserve a seat at someone's table. I have my own table now. My own swing in the garden. My own art. And I'm learning, slowly but surely, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is plant something new where something old used to die. It was funny how quickly life fell into its own rhythm when you stopped trying to force it into someone else's tempo, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running to catch up with anyone or anything, just letting the current carry me through late-night game design sessions, sunrise coffee runs, and the quiet comfort of solitude that didn't feel like loneliness anymore, just space I had earned, space I had bled for, space that I filled with sketches of game characters. Pages of unfinished storylines, and the stubborn rose bushes in the backyard that finally started blooming as spring warmed up the Boston air, though of course, peace has a way of getting disrupted just when you start to trust it, and mine came crashing down one humid Thursday afternoon when Olivia called me again, not panicked this time but flat-out furious, the kind of rage that simmered just beneath sarcasm, her voice sharp and tight as she hissed, "James, your ex-wife's sister just came to the office and tried to dump a latte on my head," and I nearly dropped my stylus, rushed over to her shared studio downtown, and found a full-blown mess waiting for me. Vivian Carter standing by the elevator, arms crossed and lips pursed like she was the final boss in some courtroom drama, while Olivia stood against the wall with her cousin Cameron next to her, both looking like they were one sentence away from escalating into a full-blown fight scene, and the moment I walked in, Olivia pointed at Vivian and said, "Tell your family to keep their drama off my property," while Vivian rolled her eyes and snapped, "You're dating other guys while playing the perfect supportive girlfriend to my sister's ex-husband. What a role model," and Cameron, bless him, just sighed and handed me a soda like he was the designated mediator, and I wanted to laugh, because the entire scene felt ridiculous, like a B-list rom-com with no script but way too much improv, but instead I just asked, calmly, "Vivian, why are you following me and keeping tabs on Olivia's schedule?" And she froze for a split second, then looked away without answering, and Olivia caught that pause too, immediately narrowing her eyes. "Wait, how do you even know what days I drive James to the studio?" And all Vivian said was, "You post too much on Instagram," which was a lie because Olivia barely posted at all and we both knew it. And I suddenly realized that Vivian hadn't been acting on her own impulse. This wasn't random, this was fueled, orchestrated, maybe even approved by someone else, and before I could say another word, Vivian turned and left, slamming the glass door behind her, the bell overhead ringing like punctuation on the end of a really messy paragraph, and Olivia exhaled through her nose, visibly trying to contain herself. "She's lucky I'm not pressing charges," then looked at me, her expression softening just slightly. "But James, why is she doing this now?" And I didn't have an answer, not a good one. Anyway, until later that evening when I got a call from Emily herself, her name lighting up on my screen like a ghost I wasn't ready to face, and for a long moment I just stared at it, wondering if I should let it ring out, but something in me wanted closure or maybe just clarity, so I picked up, and her voice came through with a strange gentleness, almost hesitant. "James, I heard about the incident, I'm so sorry," and for once, I didn't cut her off, didn't rush to end the call, just let her speak. And she continued, "I didn't know Vivian was still holding on to any of this. I thought I made it clear that I was moving on," and I asked her bluntly, "So why is she acting like this is her personal vendetta?" And Emily was quiet for a moment before saying, "She thinks I gave up something I was supposed to fight for," and that struck me, not because it was true, but because it reminded me how different we were, how Emily saw love as something clinical, something that needed justification and treatment plans, while I had always seen it as a wildfire, something that either burned with intensity or didn't burn at all, and maybe that's why we never worked, why even when she cared, it always felt like I was asking for an emotional prescription she didn't know how to write, and before I could respond, she spoke again, softer this time. "I'm back in Boston temporarily, for a conference." And I could hear it in her voice, this wasn't small talk, this was her way of opening a door, maybe for one last conversation, maybe for something more, but I wasn't walking through it, not anymore, so I told her calmly, "Emily, I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not available," and she didn't say anything for a while, then just whispered, "I understand," and that was that, the final goodbye we never really had, hanging in the air like a sentence left unfinished. And over the next few days, things gradually settled again. Vivian went radio silent, Emily flew out to wherever that conference was, and Olivia resumed bouncing between meetings and debugging late-night code, but I could feel the shift, like the universe had turned a page, and one night, as we sat on my porch with cheap wine and leftover pizza, Olivia suddenly asked, "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" And the question didn't hit like a bomb, just like a gentle prod to the ribs, so I took a sip, thought about it, and said, "Only if I never have to wonder whether I'm someone's priority," and she smiled, not wide, but soft, and leaned back into the chair, the porch light casting a warm halo around her hoodie-covered head as she murmured, "That's fair," and we didn't say much after that, just watched the stars like two people who weren't rushing toward a label, just slowly orbiting the possibility of something that felt like home, something that didn't require begging or waiting or bleeding to earn, and maybe that was enough for now. Or maybe it was just the beginning. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years, like the calm after a storm you didn't even realize had lasted that long, and for once, I wasn't waiting for a text, checking my phone out of habit, or wondering if someone would finally choose me over their job, their past, their ghost Olivia, and I kept things simple, not because we were avoiding anything, but because for the first time, it didn't feel like we had to label what we were building just to validate it, and that simplicity became its own kind of security, like waking up and knowing you'd slept all the way through the night without needing to explain why. The game we worked on went from public beta to full release, gaining traction faster than we expected, and though we were still a small fish in a massive pond, the praise we got felt earned, not handed out like pity applause. One evening, while reviewing bug reports in our shared Slack channel, Olivia sent me a message that just said, "Check your mailbox." And when I stepped outside, I found a small gift box sitting on top of the roses I had planted months ago, now blooming wildly like they'd survived a heartbreak of their own, and inside the box was a custom sketchbook, the cover etched with a chibi version of me holding a stylus like a sword, above the words, "Boss-level artist, unlocked," and I couldn't help but laugh, flipping through the blank pages that somehow felt more promising than intimidating, and maybe that's what healing looks like, not a dramatic transformation, but tiny gestures that remind you life still holds room for joy, for laughter, for stupid inside jokes and late-night bubble tea runs. Still, the past has a weird way of showing up uninvited, and it happened again one cloudy Sunday when I got a call from an unknown number and almost ignored it until something made me pick up, and on the other end was Emily's voice, quieter than I remembered, almost breathless. "James, I'm sorry to bother you, but can we talk just once?" And part of me wanted to say no immediately, but closure isn't always clean or complete, and sometimes you have to let the past speak its final words before it's truly buried, so I agreed to meet her neutral ground, a cafe by the river where we used to grab breakfast before her early shifts, and when I arrived, she was already seated, hair pulled into a low bun, makeup free, in that same gray coat I bought her 2 winters ago that she swore she'd never wear because it made her look too soft, and for the first few minutes, we just sat there in silence, sipping coffee that tasted more bitter than usual, until she finally looked up and said, "I'm not here to ask you to come back, not really, I just need to say this out loud," and I nodded, letting her speak, because I'd already said everything I needed to when I walked away the first time, and she continued, "I loved you. I did. But I didn't know how to love someone and still be the person I was trying to become. I thought if I gave you what was left after everything else, it would be enough, and I was wrong," and those words hit me harder than I expected, not because I wanted her back, but because hearing the truth still carries weight even when you've already put down the burden, and I thanked her, genuinely, then stood up and left without looking back, not out of cruelty but out of peace, because that chapter had finally closed in a way that no phone call or apology ever could. After that, things shifted. Again, subtly but permanently, like the universe was acknowledging that I had passed whatever test it had designed to break me, and Olivia and I began spending more time outside of work, weekend art fairs, film marathons on her tiny projector, even helping her cousin Cameron propose to his girlfriend by sketching a comic strip proposal that we hid in a fake manga he gifted her. We never made a big deal out of what we were becoming, but it was in the little things, how she'd bring me dumplings when I was too deep into a design spiral to eat, how she'd fall asleep beside me on the couch with her laptop sliding off her chest, how she never once made me feel like I had to fight for her attention. And one night, as we stood on my porch watching the first snowfall dust the garden, she turned to me and said, "Do you think we were always supposed to find each other after everything else broke?" And I didn't have some poetic answer. Just took her hand and squeezed it gently, replying, "Maybe we just needed to learn how to stop bleeding for people who never knew how to bandage us." And she smiled, the kind of smile that didn't ask for promises or timelines, just trust, and I realized then that I didn't need a fairy tale ending, I didn't need grand gestures or white dresses or vows spoken in front of crowds, I just needed this, someone who chose me in the quiet, in the in-between, in the after, and I wasn't naive anymore. I knew nothing was guaranteed, that even good love could bend or stretch or change, but I also knew that I had survived the kind of heartbreak that makes you question your own worth, and if I could survive that, I could build something real from the ruins, something gentle, something steady, something worth watering every single day.